The massive space station floated in the darkness around Kepler Prime like a metal flower with 12 petals. Each petal housed a different alien race in their own special air and temperature. Inside the central chamber, fear hung in the recycled atmosphere like a thick fog. Ambassador Zek Prime of the Zephorian Empire shifted nervously in his floating chair. His blue skin had turned pale gray with worry. For 3,000 years, his people had controlled 17 star systems through pure terror. They were the scary ones in this part of the galaxy. But now, reading the reports about Earth humans, Zek Prime felt something he had never experienced before. He was afraid. Across the circular chamber, the Altarian delegates whispered to each other in their musical language. Their large, gentle eyes were wide with shock. The Altarians were peaceful plant-eaters who had never hurt anyone in their entire history. They thought they knew what gentle meant. The human reports made them question everything they believed about violence and peace at the far end of the room. 3 members of the Helix consortium sat in perfect silence. Their metallic bodies gleamed under the soft lights. The Helix were the smartest beings in the known galaxy. Their technology was so advanced that other races called it magic. But as they processed the data about human achievements, their confidence cracked like old metal under stress. Council leader Vex9 stood at the center of the chamber. Silicon-based body sparkled like a living diamond. The Silicon hegemony had built this station. They had created the Galactic Federation. They considered themselves the most logical and reasonable species in existence. But logic had no answer for what they faced today. Members of the Council Vex9 spoke in the universal translation language, gathered to discuss the human request. For membership in our Federation, 3 months ago, their ship, Aurora, asked for permission to meet with us. We have spent this time studying their world and their history. The results are disturbing. The Urgoth representative, a massive warrior covered in thick armor, growled low in his throat. Disturbing is too weak a word, Council leader. These humans come from hell itself. Vex9 activated the holographic display. Earth appeared in the center of the room, spinning slowly. It looked beautiful from space, blue and green and white. But the data scrolling beside it told a different story. Class 12 Deathworld Vex9 read aloud. This is the highest danger rating in our system. No other intelligent species in our records has evolved on anything higher than Class 7. The planet Earth actively tries to kill everything living on it. Every single day, the display changed to show Earth's weather. Massive storms that could flatten cities. Earthquakes that split the ground open. Volcanoes that melted stone and poisoned the air. Tsunamis that swallowed entire coastlines. Tornadoes that picked up buildings and threw them like toys. Their planet has ice ages that last for thousands of years, continued Vex9. It has deserts where the temperature can cook flesh. It has jungles filled with creatures designed only to kill and eat. And somehow, impossibly, humans not only survived all of this, they thrived. The Crystalline Collective's representative made a sound like wind chimes in a hurricane. Through the translator, her words came out shaky. How is this possible? Our homeworld has gentle rains and mild seasons. We nearly went extinct when a volcano erupted 3 continents away. These humans live with dozens of volcanoes exploding all the time. The display changed again. Now it showed human cities. Millions of people living together in towering structures. Of metal and glass, the aliens stared in amazement and horror. They build their cities knowing that the planet will try to destroy them, said Zek Prim. Earthquakes, floods, storms. They expect these things and just rebuild afterward. They do not run away. They do not hide. They just continue living. Show them the warfare data, growled the Urgoth. Show them what these Deathworlders do. To each other, Vex9's crystalline form dimmed slightly. This was the part he dreaded most. The hologram shifted to display human military history. The numbers were staggering. Wars that lasted for years. Weapons that could kill thousands in seconds. Battles where millions died. In their most recent global conflict, over 70 million humans died, Vex9 reported. They created weapons powerful enough to destroy their entire planet. And then, when the war ended, They looked at these weapons and decided never to use them again. The gentlefolk's representative, a creature that looked like a walking flower, trembled so hard that her petals fell to the floor. They had the power to destroy everything, and they chose not to? What kind of beings are these? The kind that worry me, admitted the Helix Consortium speaker. Our psychological profiles show that humans form strong emotional bonds with their groups. They will die to protect their families. They will sacrifice themselves for strangers. They will fight against impossible odds and somehow find a way to win. Ambassador Zek Prime pulled up another report on his personal display. Look at this. They have a saying, "Hell hath no fury like a human protecting something they love." They have stories about single humans defeating entire armies when their children are threatened. But they also have other stories, added Vex 9. Stories about humans who gave their lives to save their enemies. Humans who shared their food with starving strangers. Humans who risked everything to help those who could not help themselves. The chamber fell quiet except for the hum of life support systems. Each species processed this information in their own way. The contradictions made no sense. How could the same beings be so violent and so kind, so destructive and so protective? There is something else, Vexnine continued, his voice even more worried than before. Their technology is primitive compared to ours, but it works in ways we do not understand. Their ships are tough, really tough. They build everything expecting it to break and then make sure it keeps working anyway. The Helix representative spoke up. We analyzed the Aurora. Their ship design is crude but effective. Where we use elegant solutions, they use brute force that somehow works better than it should. They over-engineer everything as if they expect the universe itself to try to break their equipment. Because on their world it does, whispered the Altarian delegate. Every day their planet tests everything they build. Only the strongest designs survive. Which brings us to the central question, said Vex 9. The humans want to join our federation. They say they come in peace. Offer friendship and trade. But should we trust beings who evolved in hell itself? Should we let Deathworlders into our peaceful galaxy? The Urgath commander stood up, his massive form casting shadows across the chamber. I say we refuse them, send them back to their world, and seal the borders. These humans are too dangerous to let loose among civilized species. But what if we make them angry? Asked the Crystalline Collective representative. What if they decide we are enemies instead of potential friends? That question hung in the air like a poison cloud. Everyone had read the reports about what humans did to their enemies. The galaxy had never seen anything like human warfare. Even the Urgoth, bred for battle, looked nervous. We vote, declared Vex 9, all in favor of accepting the human application for Federation membership. Not a single appendage, tentacle, or manipulator rose. All in favor of refusing their application and maintaining the quarantine around their solar system. Every member of the council voted yes. The decision was unanimous. It is decided, announced Vex 9. The humans will be informed that their application is denied. The quarantine around Earth remains in effect. No human ships are allowed beyond their solar system. No contact will be permitted. As the council members began to leave, returning to their separate atmospheric chambers, none of them noticed the small communication device hidden in the station's structure. None of them knew that everything they had said was being transmitted. Across space to a lone ship waiting patiently at the edge of their system, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the Aurora, listening to every word. His crew stood around him, their faces showing mixed emotions of anger and sadness. They had come so far, hoped for so much. Now they knew the truth. The galaxy was afraid of them. Jake looked at his crew, at the people he had served with for years. Lisa Parker, his second-in-command, who collected poetry from a dozen worlds. Ben Carter, who could fix anything but spent his free time building toys for orphan children. Amy Rodriguez, whose medical research had already saved thousands of lives. Tony Walsh, who learned languages just so he could tell jokes that made aliens laugh. These were the monsters that the galaxy feared. Captain, said Lisa quietly, what are our orders? Jake Morrison stood up slowly, thought about his daughter back on Earth, about the letter she had written asking him to make friends with the aliens. He thought about humanity's dream of joining the greater galactic community. He thought about fear and prejudice, and the courage it took to face both. "Set course for Kepler Prime," he said calmly. "Standard approach speed." His crew stared at him. Tony Walsh was the first to speak. "So they just voted to keep us out. The quarantine is still in effect." "I heard," Jake replied. "But we came here to talk, and we're going to talk. Deal with fear is to walk right through it." The Aurora moved through space like a small silver fish swimming toward a school of hungry sharks. Captain Jake Morrison stood on his bridge, watching the tactical display fill with red dots. 237 alien warships surrounded Kepler Prime Station, all of them turning to face his single Earth vessel. "They really don't want company," said Commander Lisa Parker from her station. Her voice stayed calm, but Jake could see the tension in her shoulders. Lisa had grown up on Mars Colony, where showing fear could get you killed in the thin atmosphere. She knew how to keep her cool. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures from those ships," reported Chief Engineer Ben Carter. Hands danced across his control panel, checking and rechecking the Aurora systems. Some of those weapons could punch through a moon. Dr. Amy Rodriguez looked up from her medical station, where she had been reviewing alien biology reports. "Fascinating. Look at the variety of ship designs. Each species builds so differently. The Zephyrian vessels look like flying daggers, while the Altarian ships are all curves and flowing lines." Communications Officer Tony Walsh shook his head in amazement. "Doc, we're about to get blown to pieces by the biggest fleet in Galactic history, and you're admiring their architecture?" "Knowledge is never wasted, Tony," Amy replied with a smile. "Besides, understanding how they build their ships tells us how they think. That might be useful." Jake listened to his crew with pride. 3 months ago, when they had first requested permission to meet with the Galactic Council, these same people had been excited about making first contact. Now, facing a hostile fleet that could turn them into space dust, they remained curious and professional. This was why he had chosen them for humanity's first diplomatic mission. The communication system crackled to life. A harsh, mechanical voice filled the bridge. "Human vessel. This is Admiral Kethsavan of the Silicon Hegemony Defense. Fleet, you are in violation of the quarantine around your solar system. Turn around immediately and return to Earth space." Jake stepped forward and nodded to Tony, who opened the communication channel. "Admiral Kethsavan, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel Aurora. We received no response to our diplomatic request 3 months ago. We're here to speak with the Galactic Council about membership in the Federation." "Your request has been denied," Admiral Kethsavan replied immediately. "Council has voted. No humans are permitted in Federation space. Return to your system now, or we will be forced to destroy your ship." The bridge fell silent. Jake could feel his crew watching him, waiting for orders. Through the view screen, the alien fleet grew larger as they approached. Each ship bristled with weapons that could destroy cities. The Aurora was tough for a human ship, but against these odds, they wouldn't last 5 minutes in a real fight. Admiral Jake said calmly, "We traveled for months to get here. We come in peace, seeking friendship and understanding. We're not turning around without at least trying to talk." "Captain Morrison," Admiral Kethsavan's voice carried a note of something that might have been respect. "Your courage is noted, but courage will not save you from 200 warships. This is your final warning." Jake looked around his bridge one more time. Lisa gave him a small nod of support. Ben's fingers hovered over the engine controls, ready for whatever came next. Amy continued studying her alien biology data as if preparing for a peaceful meeting instead of a battle. Tony had 17 different communication channels open, ready to broadcast humanity's last message to the galaxy if needed. "We're going to the station," Jake announced. "Standard approach speed, no aggressive moves, no weapons powered up. Diplomats, not conquerors." "Sir," Lisa said quietly, "they're going to shoot at us." "Probably," Jake agreed. "But maybe when they see that we won't shoot back, they'll realize we're not the monsters they think we are." Ben Carter's voice came from the engineering station. "Captain, our shields can handle some punishment, but not from that entire fleet. Then we better hope they don't all fire at once, Jake replied. Tony, send a message to the fleet. Then we're continuing our approach to request peaceful dialogue with the Council. Tell them we have no intention of harming anyone. Tony's fingers flew over his controls. Message sent, Captain. The response came immediately. Bright flashes of light erupted from a dozen alien ships as they fired warning shots across the Aurora's path. The energy beams lit up space around the human vessel, some passing close enough to make the hull plates rattle. Warning shots, reported Lisa. They're trying to scare us off. Are you scared? Jake asked his crew. Amy looked up from her datapad. Scientifically speaking, those plasma discharges are quite remarkable. The energy patterns suggest they're using a form of contained stellar fusion. I'd love to study their power systems. Ben laughed, despite the tension. Doc, you want to study the weapons that are shooting at us? Of course, Amy replied as if it was the most natural thing in the world. Think of what we could learn. Think of how that technology might help people back home. Jake smiled. This was exactly why he had chosen Dr. Rodriguez for this mission. Where others saw threats, she saw opportunities to help people. Where others saw enemies, she saw potential friends with interesting knowledge to share. More warning shots flashed around. The alien fleet was getting nervous. Their formation was tightening, weapons charging to higher power levels. Jake could see on his tactical display that several ships had moved to attack positions. Captain Tony reported, I'm picking up a lot of chatter from the alien fleet. The universal translator's having trouble with some of it, but the general meaning is clear. They're confused. Confused about what? About us. They keep saying we should be doing things we're not doing. They expected us to threaten them, or demand passage, or power up our weapons. Instead, we're just politely asking to talk. Lisa checked her sensor readings. Some of those ships are backing off slightly, not retreating, but not moving closer either. It's like they don't know what to do with us. Jake nodded. This was what he had hoped for. The galaxy feared humanity based on reports about their world and their history. But those reports didn't show the whole picture. They showed human capability. For violence, but not human choice to be peaceful. Admiral Keth 7, Jake said into the communication system, we understand your concerns. We know our world looks harsh to you. We know our history includes violence, but we're here because we want to be better. We want to learn from you, to share with you, to be part of something larger than ourselves. The response took longer this time. When Admiral Keth Savan finally spoke, his mechanical voice sounded uncertain. Captain Morrison, the reports about your species indicate you are highly aggressive and dangerous. The reports are probably accurate about our capabilities, Jake admitted, but they don't tell you about our choices. Yes, we can fight. Yes, we know how to survive in a harsh universe. But we'd rather be friends. Another long pause. Jake could imagine the confusion on the alien ships. They had prepared for a confrontation with vicious Deathworlders. Instead, they faced polite humans who wanted to chat. Captain Amy said from her station, I'm reading some interesting stress patterns in their communication signals. They're experiencing significant psychological uncertainty. In simple terms, Doc, they're really confused and starting to get worried that they might be wrong about us. More alien ships fired warning shots, but Jake noticed something interesting. The shots were getting less accurate, passing farther from the Aurora. It was as if the alien gunners were having trouble concentrating on their targeting. Admiral, Ket 7, Jake said. We're going to continue to the station. We won't shoot at you. We won't threaten anyone. We just want to talk. The alien admiral's response crackled with static. Captain Morrison, if you do not turn around, we will be forced to disable your ship. We understand, Jake replied calmly. Do what you think you need to do. The first real attack came from a Zephyrian battlecruiser. A massive energy beam struck the Aurora's forward shields, lighting up the bridge displays with alarms. The ship shook, but the shields held. Shields at 70%, Ben reported. That was a disable shot, not a kill shot. They're trying not to destroy us. Interesting, Amy observed. They're being more careful than their own tactical doctrine would recommend. They're conflicted about hurting us. More ships opened fire. Energy beams and plasma bolts struck the Aurora from multiple directions. The ship rocked under the impacts, but the human engineering held firm. Sparks flew from damaged control panels, and the lights flickered, but the Aurora kept moving forward. "Shields at 30%, Ben called out. "Hull integrity's still good. These human shields are tougher than they expected." Jake noticed something else. The alien fleet was no longer firing in coordinated volleys. Each ship seemed to be acting independently, and many of them had stopped shooting altogether. The formation was becoming loose and uncertain. "Tony, what are they saying now? It's getting harder to translate, Captain." Lots of arguing between the different species. "Some want to destroy us. Others want to capture us. And a few are suggesting they should let us through to the station." The change of heart? Amy looked up from her readings. "Captain, I think they're realizing something important. We're not fighting back." The Aurora's docking bay doors opened with a soft hiss of equalizing air pressure. Captain Jake Morrison stepped out first, followed by his crew. They wore their best diplomatic uniforms, simple blue and gold outfits that looked professional, but not military. The weapons were visible anywhere on their bodies. The docking bay of Kepler Prime Station was enormous. The ceiling stretched up so high that clouds of water vapor floated near the top. Alien ships of every size and shape filled the massive space. Some looked like living creatures with smooth, flowing lines. Others appeared to be built from geometric shapes welded together. Few seemed to be made entirely of crystal or light.
"Ow!"
whispered Tony Walsh, looking around in amazement. "This place is incredible." "Stay together," Jake said quietly. "Remember, we're guests here. Be polite, be friendly, and don't touch anything unless they say it's okay." A group of station security officers approached them. These were Urgoth warriors, each one standing 9 feet tall and weighing as much as a small vehicle. Their thick armor made them look like walking tanks. Their faces were hidden behind dark helmets, but their body language screamed aggression and suspicion. The lead. Urgoth stopped directly in front of Jake. His voice came through a translator device, deep and threatening. "Humans, you will come. With us, do not resist. Do not make sudden movements." Jake smiled up at the massive alien. "Good morning. I'm Captain Jake Morrison. We're very happy to meet you." The Urgoth warrior tilted his head slightly, as if confused by this response. Had expected fear, anger, or defiance. Instead, the small human was treating him like an old friend. "You will follow," the Urgoth said. But his voice sounded less certain than before. The group began walking through the station corridors. Jake and his crew stayed close together, but they looked around with obvious curiosity and wonder. The station was beautiful in ways that human architects had never imagined. Walls curved and flowed like frozen water. Lights grew from the ceiling like luminous plants. Artwork from dozens of cultures decorated every surface. "It's amazing," Dr. Amy Rodriguez said to one of the Urgoth guards. "The bioluminescent lighting system must be incredibly efficient. How do you maintain such perfect color balance across the spectrum?" The guard stumbled slightly in his heavy armor. No one had ever asked him about lighting systems before. He had been trained to handle prisoners, rebels, and invaders. He had no idea how to respond to genuine scientific curiosity. "I do not know," he admitted finally. Amy smiled warmly. "That's okay. Maybe we can ask the engineers later." Dare. Bet they're very proud of their work." As they continued through the station, more aliens stopped to stare at the humans. Word had spread quickly about the small ship that had flown through a barrage of weapons fire just to request a conversation. Everyone wanted to see the legendary Deathworlders for themselves. What they saw confused them completely. The humans walked with confidence, but not arrogance. They looked around with interest, but not greed. When they passed a group of young Altarian students, Commander Lisa Parker smiled and waved. The students giggled and waved back before their teacher hurried them away. "The crystalline architecture is beautiful," Lisa commented to another guard. "Whoever designed this station understood how to make functional spaces feel welcoming." Guard, a member of the Crystalline Collective, made a sound like wind chimes. Through his translator, his words came out pleased and proud. The design took 300 years to perfect. We wanted every being to feel at home here. You succeeded, Lisa assured him. It's the most beautiful building I've ever seen. Chief Engineer Ben Carter noticed a maintenance worker struggling with a broken hoverlift near the corridor wall. The alien was small and furry, with 6 arms that weren't quite strong enough to handle the heavy equipment. "Excuse me," Ben said to the nearest guard. "Could I help with that?" "I'm pretty good with mechanical problems." The guard looked uncertain. The maintenance worker looked hopeful. After a moment of confusion, the guard stepped aside. Ben walked over to the broken lift and knelt down beside it. The maintenance worker, who belonged to a species called the Fixers, chattered nervously. In his own language, Ben couldn't understand the words, but the meaning was clear. The lift's power coupling had failed. "I see the problem," Ben said gently. He pulled a small toolkit from his belt and went to work. Within minutes, the hoverlift hummed back too. Life the Fixer's eyes went wide with amazement. He chattered excitedly, patting Ben on the shoulder with 3 of his 6 hands. Even without translation, his gratitude was obvious. "You're welcome," Ben said with a smile. "Happy to help." The security guards watched this interaction with growing confusion. According to their briefings, humans were supposed to be violent and selfish. Instead, this one had stopped to help a stranger with no expectation of reward as they continued through the station. Similar scenes played out over and over. Dr. Rodriguez asked thoughtful questions about alien biology that made even the most xenophobic beings feel flattered. Tony Walsh attempted to learn basic greetings in different alien languages, mangling the pronunciation so badly that even nervous aliens couldn't help but smile. Captain Morrison thanked everyone they met for their hospitality as if being escorted. Under guard was a special favor. The turning point came when they reached the main transit hub. This was where beings from different atmospheric zones could meet safely. The air was carefully controlled, and viewing ports allowed species to see each other, even when they couldn't share the same environment. A group of Zephyrian children pressed against one of the viewing ports, staring at the humans with wide eyes. In their culture, children were taught to fear outsiders. But these particular outsiders looked interesting rather than scary. One of the smallest children, a little girl with bright blue skin, held up a drawing she had made. It showed stick figures of different species holding hands around a planet. She pressed it against the viewing port and pointed at the humans. Amy Rodriguez saw the drawing and her face lit up with joy. She walked over to the viewing port and knelt down to be at the child's eye level. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a photograph. It showed children from Earth, human children of different colors and backgrounds, all playing together in a park. Amy held up the photograph so the Zephyrian girl could see it. The little girl's eyes went even wider. She turned to her friends and chattered excitedly in her own language. Soon, a dozen alien children were pressed against the viewing port. Pointing at Amy's picture and talking rapidly, the adult Zephyrians were supposed to be watching the children look nervous. They tried to pull the youngsters away from the humans, but the children resisted. They wanted to see more pictures. Amy understood immediately. She sat down cross-legged in front of the viewing port and began showing the children more photographs. From Earth, pictures of human children learning to walk, pictures of families having picnics, pictures of kids playing with pets and building snowmen and learning to read. The alien children were fascinated. They pressed closer to the viewing port, pointing at details in the pictures and asking questions that Amy couldn't understand but tried to answer anyway through gestures and expressions. "Look at that," said Lisa quietly to Jake. "She's making friends already." Even the Urgoth guards had stopped to watch. These massive warriors, bred for combat and trained to intimidate. They found themselves smiling inside their helmets as they watched. A human doctor showed alien children pictures of other children from across the galaxy. The moment was interrupted by the arrival of Station Commander Filate, a Silicon hegemony official who ranked just below the council members themselves. His crystalline body sparkled with agitation as he approached the group. "What is the meaning of this delay?" he demanded. "Council is waiting. Why are these humans not in detention?" The lead Urgoth guard shifted uncomfortably. "Have been ... cooperative. They have caused no trouble." "Cooperative? Commander Filate's voice rose in pitch. "These are Deathworlders. They should be restrained and contained." Jake stood up slowly, leaving Amy to continue entertaining the children. "Commander Filate, I presume? I'm Captain Jake Morrison. We're honored to be guests on your station." Commander Filate stared at Jake for a long moment. According to every report he had read, humans were supposed to be intimidating and aggressive. This one was polite and seemed genuinely pleased to meet him. "You are not guests," Filate said, but his voice had lost some of its authority. You are unauthorized visitors, who forced their way past our defenses." "We asked permission to talk," Jake replied calmly. "When we didn't get an answer, we came anyway. Sometimes the only way to start a conversation is to show up and begin talking." Behind them, Amy was still showing pictures to the alien children. More adults had gathered to watch, and the crowd was growing. Beings from different species stood side by side, all focused on the simple interaction between a human and alien youngsters. "This is highly irregular," Commander Filate muttered. "The security protocols clearly state that potentially dangerous beings should be isolated immediately." "Do we look dangerous to you?" asked Lisa Parker. Commander Filate looked around at the scene. A human engineer had just fixed a broken piece of equipment. Human doctor was entertaining children. The council chambers fell completely silent as the 5 humans entered. 12 different species sat in their special atmospheric bubbles, each one designed to keep them alive and comfortable. The air itself seemed to hold its breath as captain. Jake Morrison and his crew walked to the center of the massive circular room. Every alien representative had read the reports. They knew these beings came from a Class 12 death world. They knew human history was filled with violence and warfare. Had seen the data about Earth's killer storms, deadly earthquakes, and poisonous creatures, expected to face monsters instead. They saw Jake Morrison smile warmly as he looked around the chamber. His face showed no anger, no threat, no demand for respect. He looked genuinely happy to be there. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Jake began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation system. "Thank you for allowing us to speak with you today. We know this meeting wasn't easy to arrange, and we're grateful for the opportunity." Council leader Vexanine's crystalline form flickered with confusion. The human was thanking them. After being denied entry for months, after having to fight through a fleet of warships just to reach the station, Ambassador Zekprim of the Zephyrian Empire leaned forward in his floating chair. His blue skin had turned pale with nervousness. "Human Captain, we have studied your species extensively. We know what your world has made you. We know what you are capable of." Jake nodded seriously. "I'm sure you do. Our world is harsh, and our history has some very dark chapters. We understand why that frightens you." The simple acknowledgement surprised everyone in the chamber. They had expected the humans to deny their violent nature or make excuses for their past. Instead, this captain was openly admitting that their fears had a basis in reality. "We know our planet looks like hell to most of you," Jake continued. "We know that the things we consider normal would terrify beings from gentler worlds. Earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanoes, blizzards. We live with these things every day. They've shaped us in ways that probably seem scary." The Altarian delegate made a soft musical sound of distress. Her large, gentle eyes were wide with remembered horror from the reports about Earth's weather. "But," Jake said, his voice becoming warmer, "we'd like to show you something else about humanity, something the reports might not have mentioned." He gestured to Commander Lisa Parker, who stepped forward with a small device in her hand. She activated it, and a holographic display filled the center of the chamber. But instead of showing Earth's dangers, it showed Earth's beauty, rolling green hills covered with flowers, snow-capped mountains reflecting sunlight like mirrors, oceans so blue they seemed to glow, forests so thick and green they looked like living carpets, cities where millions of people lived together in harmony. "This is also our world," Lisa said, softly. "Yes, it's dangerous, but it's also the most beautiful place we've ever seen. We didn't just survive on Earth, we learned to love it." The display changed to show humans doing everyday things. Families having picnics in parks, children playing in gardens, artists creating sculptures and paintings. musicians performing for crowds who danced and laughed. We learned early that life is precious because it can be taken away so easily. Lisa continued. So we learned to celebrate it. We learned to help each other. We learned that the best way to face a harsh universe is together. The crystalline collective's representative made a sound like distant bells. But your history shows constant warfare. How can you speak of peace and cooperation when your species has fought each other for thousands of years? Dr. Amy Rodriguez stepped forward to answer. You're absolutely right. We have fought wars, terrible wars, that killed millions of people. We've done things we're ashamed of. But do you know what happened after our worst war?
Act.
She activated another holographic display. This one showed scenes from Earth's history after World War II. Former enemies, working together to rebuild destroyed cities. Scientists from different nations sharing knowledge to cure diseases, soldiers who had fought each other becoming friends and allies. We looked at what we had done to each other and decided never to do it again, Amy said. We created laws to prevent genocide. We built organizations to help people in different countries work together. We shared our medical knowledge so that diseases that killed millions of us would never kill anyone again. But you still have weapons, growled the Urgath representative. Weapons that could destroy your entire planet. Chief Engineer Ben Carter nodded. We do. We built them during our darkest period when we were so afraid of each other that we thought destruction was better than defeat. But when we realized what we had created, we stepped back from the edge. Ben activated his own display, showing Earth's space program. Humans working together to build stations and ships. Scientists from every nation collaborating on projects to explore the stars. We took the same technology that built weapons and used it to reach for the stars instead, Ben explained. We took the same rockets that could carry bombs and used them to carry dreams. We proved that humans can choose to be better than their worst impulses. Communications Officer Tony Walsh stepped forward next. Every species has good and bad in them. The difference is what they choose to focus on. We chose to focus on building instead of destroying, on healing instead of hurting, on exploring instead of conquering. Tony's display showed human art, music, and literature. Beautiful paintings that captured the wonder of nature, songs that made people cry with joy, stories that taught children to be kind to others even when those others were different. Is what we want to share with the galaxy, Tony said. Not our capacity for violence, but our love of beauty. Not our ability to destroy, but our passion for creating. Not our skill at making war, but our dream of making friends. The council chamber remained silent for a long moment. Every representative was processing what they had seen and heard. The humans weren't denying their dangerous nature. Instead, they were showing how they had chosen to overcome it. Council leader Vexanine finally spoke, his crystalline voice carrying uncertainty. You say you have chosen peace, but what guarantees do we have? What prevents you from choosing violence again if it suits your purposes? Jake Morrison stepped back to the center of the group. Nothing, he said simply. There are no guarantees. In life, you could choose to attack Earth tomorrow. We could choose to become conquerors next year. Zavarian Empire could decide to enslave the Altarians. The Urgoth could declare war on the Silicon hegemony. The aliens shifted uncomfortably at these possibilities. But Jake continued, we don't make friendships based on guarantees. We make them based on trust. And trust has to start somewhere. Looked around the chamber, making eye contact with each representative. We're asking you to trust that we mean what we say. That we want to be your friends, not your conquerors. That we want to learn from you, not rule over you. And what do you offer in return for this trust? Asked the representative from the gentle folk, her flower-like petals trembling with emotion. Amy Rodriguez answered, everything we have. Our knowledge of medicine, we've learned to heal injuries that would kill beings from gentler worlds. Our engineering, we know how to build things that work even when the universe tries to break them. Our art and music and stories, ways of finding beauty, even in the darkest times. Ben Carter added, we offer our experience with survival. Not just physical survival, but emotional survival. How to hope when things seem hopeless. How to rebuild when everything falls apart. How to forgive when forgiveness seems impossible. Lisa Parker spoke next. We offer our perspective. We've seen the worst that life can offer, and we still believe in goodness. We've experienced the depths of fear and hatred, and we still choose love. Maybe that perspective could be useful to other species facing their own challenges. Tony Walsh concluded, we offer ourselves, not as conquerors or rulers, but as friends. As partners in building something better than any of us could create alone. The silence in the chamber stretched on and on. Jake could see the internal struggle on every alien face. They wanted to believe what they were hearing, but fear was a powerful emotion. Fear of the unknown. Fear of making a mistake. Fear of trusting beings who came from a world that would kill most of them in minutes. Finally, the smallest voice in the chamber spoke up. It came from the representative of the Quiet Ones, a species so peaceful they rarely spoke in council meetings. What if we're wrong? She whispered. What if we reject them, and they really did come in peace? What if we let fear make us miss the chance to know the most interesting species we've ever encountered? Her words hung in the air like a challenge. To every other representative, Ambassador Zek Prime was the first to respond. In 3,000 years, my people have ruled through fear. We made others afraid of us, and we were afraid of everyone else. But these humans, they make me want to try something different. They make me want to see what friendship feels like. The Altarian delegate spoke next, her musical voice filled with wonder. They come from a world of violence, but they choose peace. They have weapons that could destroy planets, but they use their technology to help people. They are everything we feared and everything we hoped for. One by one, the other representatives began to speak. 6 months later, Captain Jake Morrison stood in what used to be the old United Nations building in New York City. But the building looked very different now. The walls had been expanded upward and outward to accommodate beings of different sizes. The air filtration system had been redesigned to handle 12 different atmospheric requirements. Translation devices hung from every ceiling, converting dozens of languages in real time. Outside the windows, ships from across the galaxy landed and took off from the newly built spaceport in Central Park. Some ships looked like living flowers, their petals opening to reveal Altarian passengers. Others appeared to be made of pure crystal, carrying the Silicon Hegemony's representatives. A few massive vessels brought Ergoth delegations, while tiny, quick ships zipped around, carrying messages between the different groups. Jake watched all this activity with a sense of wonder that still hadn't faded. The vote to accept humanity into the Galactic Federation had been just the beginning. What happened next had surprised everyone, including the humans themselves. Captain Morrison, came a voice behind him. Jake turned to see Ambassador Zek Prime approaching. Zephyrian's blue skin had returned to its normal, healthy color, and he moved with confidence instead of fear. Ambassador Jake replied with a smile. How are the preparations going? Better than expected, Zek Prime admitted. The Galactic Friendship Accords are almost ready for signing. I never thought I would see the day when my empire would voluntarily give up its weapons of conquest, but here we are. Jake nodded. Friendship Accords had been humanity's idea, but every species in the Federation had contributed to writing them, instead of the old rules based on fear and military strength. The new accords focused on cooperation, shared knowledge, and mutual protection. Your people have changed us, Zek Prime continued. For 3,000 years, we ruled through terror. We made others afraid of us because we thought fear meant respect. But watching how your crew treated everyone on Kepler Prime Station, it showed us a different way. Through the window, Jake could see Zephyrian children playing with human children. In the park below, 6 months ago, such a sight would have been impossible. Now it happened every day. Dr. Amy Rodriguez walked up to join their conversation. She carried a data pad filled with medical reports from across the galaxy. Jake, you need to see this. The treatment for Altarian bone decay syndrome is working perfectly. We've already saved over 10,000 lives and the cure is spreading. 2 other species, too. Amy had been busy since arriving on Earth. Her medical research, combined with human adaptability studies, had led to breakthroughs that helped multiple alien species. Diseases that had plagued entire worlds for centuries were being cured with treatments based on how humans had adapted to Earth's harsh conditions. "That's wonderful news," Jake said. "Any word from Ben and his engineering teams?" "They're making incredible progress," Amy replied. "The new ship designs that combine human durability with alien technology are amazing. Ships that can survive in situations that would destroy any vessel built by a single species." Chief Engineer Ben Carter had become something of a legend among alien engineers. His approach of building things to survive the worst possible conditions, combined with alien technology that was far more advanced than anything humans had created, resulted in spacecraft that were both elegant and nearly indestructible. Commander Lisa Parker joined the group, looking pleased but tired. "The cultural exchange programs are expanding faster than we can manage them. We have requests from 47 different worlds wanting to host human artists, musicians, and writers." Lisa had become Earth's unofficial ambassador of culture, human art, with its themes of finding beauty in harsh circumstances and hope in dark times, had touched something deep in many alien species. Music that had been written during Earth's wars now brought peace to worlds that had never known conflict. "And Tony?" Jake asked about their communications officer. "He's in the translation center," Lisa replied. "He's working with linguists from 8 different species to create a new universal language. One that captures emotional meaning as well as literal meaning. They're calling it friendship speak." Tony Walsh had discovered that many conflicts between species came from misunderstandings caused by poor translation. His work to create better communication methods was preventing disputes before they could start. Ambassador Zek Prime looked around at the bustling activity. "Your species has been part of the Federation for only 6 months, and already everything has changed. How do you do it?" Jake thought about the question for a moment. "I think it's because we've learned that surviving isn't enough. To really live, you have to help others live too. Our planet taught us that the universe can be cruel, but it also taught us that working together makes us stronger than anything the universe can throw at us." A soft chime indicated that the afternoon assembly was about to begin. Jake and his companions made their way to the main chamber, where representatives from all Federation species gathered daily to coordinate their work. The chamber was full of activity. Urgoth warriors worked alongside gentle Altarian philosophers to design new peacekeeping protocols. Silicon hegemony scientists shared data with human researchers to develop better life support systems. Crystalline collective artists collaborated with human musicians to create new forms of entertainment that could be enjoyed by any species. Council leader Vex9 called the assembly to order. His crystalline form had grown brighter over the past months, reflecting his improved mood. "Fellow beings, we gathered today to review our progress on the Galactic Friendship Accords. The reports that followed would have been impossible to imagine a year earlier. Wars between species had stopped completely. Trade had increased by 300%. Scientific discoveries were being shared freely between worlds. Art and culture were flowing across the galaxy like never before. The humans have taught us something important," Vex9 continued. "They have shown us that strength and gentleness are not opposites, that the ability to destroy and the choice to create can exist in the same beings, that the harshest experiences can produce the kindest hearts." Jake listened with pride as species after species reported on how human influence had changed their worlds for the better. But he also felt humbled. Humanity had offered friendship, but the aliens had offered something just as valuable in return. The chance to be part of something bigger than Earth, bigger than any single world. After the assembly, Jake walked through Central Park. The afternoon sun filtered through leaves that had grown from seeds, brought from Altair Prime, flowers. From the crystalline homeworld sparkled like living jewels along the pathways. Children from a dozen different species played games that combined rules from across the galaxy. He stopped at a memorial that had been built near the park center. It honored all the beings who had died in the old conflicts between species, wars that had been fought out of fear and misunderstanding. The memorial was made from stone from every Federation world, including Earth, An inscription was carved in the new universal language that Tony had helped create. In simple words that could be understood by any thinking being, it read, "They trembled in silence until friendship showed them a better way." Jake smiled at the inscription. It captured perfectly what had happened over the past months. The galaxy had been trapped by fear, each species afraid of the others, till one small act of courage had started a chain reaction of friendship. A small voice interrupted his thoughts. "Captain Morrison?" Jake looked down to see the little Zephyrian girl who had pressed her drawing against the viewing port on Kepler Prime Station. She was holding hands with a human child and an Altarian youngling. "Yes," Jake said, kneeling down to be at their eye level. "Are you really from the scary planet?" The girl asked in perfect, if childish English. Jake laughed gently. "I'm from Earth, yes. Some people think it's scary. It doesn't look scary in the pictures," said the human child. "It looks pretty. All places look pretty when you see them." "With friends," Jake replied. The Altarian youngling, who communicated through color changes in her skin, turned a warm golden hue that meant happiness and agreement. "Can we visit Earth someday?" asked the Zephyrian girl. "I hope so," Jake said. "And maybe someday I can visit your worlds too. That's what friends do. They visit each other." The three children ran off to continue their game, leaving Jake alone with his thoughts. As he watched ships from across the galaxy come and go, he reflected on how much had changed. A year ago, humanity had been alone in the universe, dreaming of contact with other intelligent species. Now Earth was home to the largest peaceful gathering of different species in galactic history. The galaxy had expected monsters from the Deathworld. Instead, they had found teachers who showed them that the strongest beings could also be the gentlest, that those who had survived the worst could help others create the best. Jake looked up at the stars that were just becoming visible in the evening sky. Somewhere out there, on worlds he had never seen, beings were living better lives because humans had chosen friendship over fear. And somewhere else, other species might be facing their own fears, needing someone to take that first step forward.